Hey, this is Gary.
This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the 12th Step Podcast. This is Mike.
And this is Gary.
And this is Daniel.
It's good to have your order down. That's great.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna read an email from Morris. This is a recent response from Morris, who's reaching out and makes the following comments. He said, "Hello, 12th Step Podcast team. I hope this message finds you well. We are doing well.
Yes.
I've struggled with this addiction all of my life, 57 years now. I absolutely relate. Morris and I are nearing the same age. There have been times when I've managed to stay sober for years, but it has always found its way back during challenging moments in my life." We want to come to that. That's an important thing. Mm-hmm. When I lost my father to cancer, it returned. It came back again when one of my daughters was battling breast cancer. Now it's resurfaced as I face the threat of my business going under due to the current economy. Through all of this, my loving wife has stood by my side. She hasn't said much about how this has affected her, but I know the strain it places on her, and it breaks my heart. I truly want to rid myself of this devil on my shoulder once and for all, for her, for my family, and for myself. I've sought support from my clergy and therapist, but I feel like I'm still not getting the help I need to fully overcome this. I'm reaching out to you in hopes that you can offer advice, resources, or insights that might make a difference in my journey to recovery. Thank you for taking the time to read this and any guidance that you can provide. Morris. That's a fantastic email with a lot of great information to unpack. Thank you, Morris, for reaching out. Thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts immediately?
I mean, first off, my heart breaks for this guy. He has gone through a lot. I mean, he hasn't dove into, what brought him to the point of his addiction, but the things that happened with his father, with his daughter, it's
a lot of
work,
cancer in his life, isn't it? Yeah.
His work. But the one thing I have to say that is amazing is the fact that he realizes the pain it's causing his family, his wife, and and himself.
Yeah.
So that means that there's some work that's been done there, and he has some insight. So my heart goes out to Morris. I mean, the first thing I would suggest is, much like me when early on, I was seeing therapists too, but they weren't the right therapist. It wasn't a CSAT trained therapist, and so I wasn't getting the right help. So that would be one of my questions: is, are you seeing a CSAT therapist? Because they have the tools to really help. And also, my religious leaders didn't have the training or the experience they needed, and so they weren't much of a help.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised if this is the case that he isn't finding that help.
Those are all great places to start, and I'm going to tell you to keep doing them.
Yeah.
But something else that you didn't mention, a 12-step group,
right?
Or a group therapy kind of experience where you're going to build a lot of the community around yourself that's going to support you and help you overcome and reinforce these kind of things. Yeah. I have another thought that, you find these moments in your life of great stress, and this is, so almost a year ago now, my father went through some stuff and I nearly lost him. On a couple of times in quick succession. He had problems with his heart and things like that. And that was a very sobering realization to me. And then I came to realize and think of it in a way that I hadn't thought about it before. I have tragedy in my future.
Sure.
Real tragedy.
Yeah.
Unless I go first, but either way, I find myself constantly in a position where I need to prepare for real tragedy, or I need to prepare the people around me for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now that's kind of an uncomfortable thought, an unpleasant thought, and you certainly can't predict everything that life is going to throw at you, which is why you have to take life on life's terms. But if I'm going to go through the rest of my life in recovery, then I absolutely have to. I don't know. The thought came to me as I thought, I need to prepare for the eventuality that I'm going to lose this person,
Right.
and there's nothing for it.
That's right.
And it's going, and I know that it's going to affect me
Negatively.
deeply,
Yeah.
Profoundly. So I have the opportunity now that I can start doing some of these things to prepare myself. And I need to do that. And by doing that, not only will I prepare myself for that eventuality, but if I very honestly think about life and knowing that, any one of a number of things can happen, and then prepare myself for them or have an idea of what I'm going to do to meet those kind of challenges, then when they happen or something like unto them happens, it's not going to knock me on my butt.
Right. There were a couple thoughts that jumped out at me as you were explaining that as well, and then sort of thinking about his own writing here. Morris is 57 years old and has had periods of time,
Yeah.
long periods of time in which he's experienced sobriety, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Then he makes an interesting observation that it comes back at these moments of difficulty in his life. And I think you're hitting on something right there that says, each one of us inevitably will have these moments of difficulty in our life because death is imminent. Everybody at some point in time will experience a death in the family. His is very, very difficult.
Right.
Cancer situations are incredibly difficult, and in a lot of cases are long, drawn-out processes that are painful to watch, painful to see anybody go through, and that wears on him. That wears on him. So what he's discovering is in his relapse is he's discovering that there's the moments right there that I'm vulnerable. And I think you hit it right on the head. There are things that we can do for that eventual vulnerability, right? There are things that we can do to build up and prepare ourselves for that. We can find out how it is that we act out during that period of time. And we can do a variety of different things to minimize that. We can eliminate the internet. We can eliminate our access to things during those periods of time. We can set boundaries around it. We know, for instance, that I'm experiencing the same situation right now. It could be very soon for me to lose my father. And I've never really experienced significant death in my family, so this will be new for me. But I can tell you that I do know a couple things really work. Connection works.
Yeah. In fact, I was just going to say that.
Connection works really well, and there's no time to connect with anyone like when there's a death in the family, right? That's a great time to connect with everybody and to be fully present and to be fully engaged and to be heavily involved in all that goes on there rather than separating ourselves from all of that because of the pain and the loss. So connection is a great opportunity. And I think it's in moments like that that allow us then to get through the difficult patch. Keep in mind, Morris, that it sounds like to me, at least from the email, that you had patches of significant sobriety that have been broken up by acting out behaviors. That if we figured out those acting out behaviors and solve that, you would have sobriety for a long period of time. That's a significant deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. That's not nothing.
That's not nothing.
Yeah.
And so the point being is that when we can get our arm around when it is that we specifically have these issues, and he's had some difficulties in his life, no doubt about
Yeah.
it. But with a little bit of connection, some gratitude, some grace, and all that goes with recovery, he'd be stringing together significant amounts of clean time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and my question is do you have a support system when these moments happen?
Yeah,
That
sure.
is not your spouse
Right.
or your kids.
Right.
That's where,
Yeah.
the 12-step group or a sponsor or, group therapy would really come into play.
I guarantee you that the moment in my life when that happens, that you guys will know about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I also know that you guys care about me enough and know me well enough to understand that I will need
You will
you.
need,
Yeah.
there'll be a need there.
And that works both ways.
Yes.
Mike, I fully, Daniel does great. Every time he goes through something stressful, he reaches out
Right.
because he knows I'll be there, but that's come with the price of fostering that relationship now,
Yes.
creating that connection now. Mike, when you go through your stuff, I absolutely anticipate that you will probably reach out,
Right.
because we will know and you'll need us.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
But we've forged those things, and I don't know why this subject is touching me so deeply, but
Loss is hard.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
but we know those things are coming. We
Yeah.
all understand that
Yes.
there is something. Anybody you look at is going through something, has gone through something, or is about to.
Right.
You know, and yeah, you've got to. That's why those healthy connections are so important.
Yeah.
You know,
I couldn't agree more. And it sounds like he has, a fairly tight knit family, but I think
Yeah.
but I think a connection with a good SAA group, a sponsor, all that sort of stuff. One of the things I found the most beneficial in all of my near acting out behavior was to have when Gary was there for me as a sponsor, to say, I'm going through this. Something's up, something's going on, and to have somebody I can call who gets it.
Yeah.
And so a sponsor during that period of time, as he's experiencing these moments of we'll call a rough patch, a sponsor is ideal for those perfect times.
Well, and not only that, like even with my ex, like she never could fully understand,
Right.
she saw it as like this enemy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that his wife is seeing it that, but it was really hard for her to be in the same shoes
Right.
or understand where I was coming from. Where when I called Gary, like, yeah, he knew exactly what those urges felt. He knew exactly, maybe not in the exact thing, but he knew what it was like to be in that place, to
Right.
be in those moments when I was struggling. And it was just like, I'm teetering at the edge. And he had the right words to say.
Right.
But most of them were of compassion and empathy. And that just, it washes away that intensity
Yes.
when you reach out and you receive that. And so I definitely very much suggest that you get a team that understands that,
I
that can be
agree.
behind you. Now, your wife is probably amazing. Your family is probably amazing.
your clergy's probably
And
helpful.
your clergy and therapist, but they've not walked a step in your shoes.
Right.
But finding other people in recovery have, and they can understand and empathize, and that is so valuable.
Yeah. I do have one word of caution to Morris.
Sure.
He makes a comment at the end of this sentence that just catches me just briefly.
Okay.
It's I truly want to rid myself of this devil on my shoulder once and for all,
Yeah, I was gonna.
for her, for my family, and myself. Now, oftentimes, it's just a writing prologue, if you will. It's this idea that we put things in order and we rank them in order of significance. That's
Oh.
typical.
I didn't catch that,
No,
but good
I was
one.
gonna say something too.
Okay, that's very common for us when we write stuff to always highlight the most significant. You want to get rid of this thing for her, and I couldn't agree more. You want to get rid of this thing for her, for your family, and I couldn't agree more. But the reason we are in recovery, the reason we focus on recovery like we do, is 100% selfishly for me.
Yes.
Now, everybody benefits as a result
Yeah.
of my recovery, my family and my spouse included.
And those things could be powerful motivators.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. But it's only when I become selfish about my recovery that sees me through these rough patches, right? If I'm doing this for somebody else, I think to myself, they just don't know how bad I've got it. So they'll understand if I relapse, right? And that's not the place we want to be. We work hard and struggle through those rough patches because we want it,
Yes.
not because of anybody else. So, that may not be Morris's situation. So, Morris, if that's not your case, don't own anything that's not yours.
Yeah.
But I'm only throwing that out there to be careful about that.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to put you first.
Yes.
And then as long as you do this, it will benefit her.
That's exactly
And it will
right.
benefit your family.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just have to have, when we do it for ourselves, it has this sustainability to it that sees us through those
Yeah.
difficult times.
Well, and
that's important.
that was a big change for me because I was always doing it to save my marriage. I was always doing it
Yes.
for her. And then when that went out the window and it was no longer the thing and I had to make the choice that I'm doing it for me,
That's right.
and I really locked in.
And that's when recovery really started moving forward
Yeah.
in a meaningful way. So that's an important thing. I just wanted to I saw something very early on here in his very first sentence, and I said we needed to come back to that, and I'm not sure we have, so I just want to look at this again. Just the observation that it comes back in challenging moments in my life. I think we've kind of addressed that, but I think that's a great observation. I think that says volumes about addiction. This thing isn't around. I don't have a problem with this thing until things get tough. That's a genius insight for most people. If Morris can tap into that in a meaningful way and recognize the down days versus the up days, look, I can be a little less vigilant on the days that I'm up because I'm not vulnerable then.
Yeah.
But what can I build around these down days?
Yeah.
What kind of security can I put myself in? What can I do differently around those down days? Because they happen in life. We all have them.
Yeah.
Yes.
The question is, do I have the tools to deal with them when they're not good days? So what is that? And I think that's a great insight for him. I hope he does some work around that. My moniker is always do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring. There's work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's work to be done in what it is he's pointed out. And if you'll spend some time with that, there is lots of opportunity to smooth these things out. His clean time will move from however much, whatever the last big patch of it was to now doubling to tripling to, just by doing a little work around that piece of it.
And just identifying that takes some people a long time
does.
to get to that point of identifying those things.
It's obvious that he's done a good deal of work.
Yes.
He has.
And don't diminish that.
No.
You've done a lot of work, and good for you. You just
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great place. I have the highest hopes for him.
I do too.
I really do. I have the highest hopes for him. Any other thoughts for Morris before we wrap up?
Don't give up. Keep going.
Yeah. Definitely don't give up. Realize you have done a lot of great work up to this point, even before reaching out to us. Identified those times. And when you see those times coming, have a game plan, have a support team. We call it a safety plan. Have those in play. Discuss those with your wife. Saying, okay, when these events happen, we do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I engage with my support system, with these people. I'm not going to lean on you, and hopefully you'll have a support team that you can lean on. We can still lean on each other, but it's more going to be focused on, the event that's happening, and I can lean on them for my addiction to make sure that doesn't happen. And be gentle with yourself. These tough things come, and they're hard.
They are.
And the most important thing is don't run away from the emotions. Feel them, walk through that grief, be open about it, because secrecy is our greatest enemy,
Right.
and avoiding those emotions is our greatest enemy. And that's probably why this addiction comes up, is because you start feeling all these intense emotions and you want to shut them down.
Yeah.
And it could be because, I need to be the strong, vigilant warrior for my wife. You don't. You're actually stronger when she sees that you're breaking down, that you're being vulnerable, and she needs to see that just as much as you need to see that from her.
I think that's right. I relate so much to Morris's comments, partly because some of the work I'm doing in my own recovery. I have discovered that every 45 to 60 days, so about every 2 months, I hit a patch. And it doesn't matter what side of the bed I get up on. The minute my feet hit the floor, I'm in a shitty mood, and it's all bad. It's just all bad. Everybody around me is bad. I say, but and you've always kind of brought this out to me, Gary, in some of our conversations, and that is what's happening that 24 to 48 hours beforehand. And I just know that it's going bad. And I will tell you, in the work that I've done, I start being very critical of my spouse. I start being very critical of my kids. Suddenly, all the positive things that these people are doing in my life are not doing those things positively anymore.
Yeah.
And I start recognizing that. And I'm, listen, I had a daughter that didn't clean her room when she was in the 3rd grade, and I can go find that and I can complain about it however many 30 years later, whatever the case may be. It just goes that way. And I'm starting to realize that there's a cycle to it. I'm starting to realize that there's some really key indicators to it, and I'm starting to realize what I need to do to put myself in the best possible situation during that period of time. I'm starting now with my own back talk saying, Mike, you're in that place, you know, right where you're at. The great thing is it always has an end. This is not a terminal
Correct.
situation. I know that it's going to start on this day and it's going to take a day or so to get through it. But once I'm through it, I'm back to that, that sunny, bright, happy Mike that I used to be. I just know that it happens. So knowing that is a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
And
Yeah.
understanding how to build around that. Now, I don't know that I have a complete strategy of how to build around that. I do know there are a couple things that I do. One of the things I do is I give myself a lot of grace.
Mm-hmm.
I give myself a lot of latitude, and I give myself a lot of I take care of myself during that period of time. Morris, that's something you can consider as well. There is a period of time in your history where things were tough. Those are the times to really take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Self-care is a monstrous piece of recovery. And you're one of those people, I'm sure, that's able to give and give and give and give and give when things are going well. But when it's difficult time, when things are in crunch like that, you need to be careful about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I agree.
So, it's a great email. It's a great email, and I hope he does well and finds some success.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other thoughts?
I don't have any other.
No.
Then let's wrap it up.
Okay.
This is Mike saying, doing the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And this is Gary saying, do the next right thing.
And this is Daniel saying, find the humility in your recovery.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.